The dead deserve respect. That's what Mabel's aunt had whispered at her parents' funeral 5 years ago, squeezing her hand until it hurt. But when you're the only wolf at a funeral who carries the stain of your family's disgrace, when you're the cursed daughter no pack member will acknowledge, you learn that respect is just another word for convenient lies. Hundreds of candles cast flickering shadows across Alpha Magnus' ornate silver casket, their flames dancing like whispered accusations. Pack members dressed in formal black mourning attire filled the ceremonial hall, but none stood near Mabel. She was isolated at the very back, pressed against the cold stone wall, wearing a simple black dress that once belonged to her mother. The cursed one. The traitor's daughter. The wolf whose parents died in flames that reeked of dark magic and whose very presence brought misfortune. Victor Silvermoon, Magnus' son and heir, accepted condolences at the front of the hall, his face a carefully constructed mask of grief. Mabel had seen him smile when her parents burned. She'd been too young then to do anything but watch. Too powerless to speak the truth no one wanted to hear. "The council will move against you now," a voice murmured beside her. "Without Magnus' protection, such as it was, you'll be driven out before the week ends." Mabel turned to find Kieran Blackwood studying her with amber eyes that missed nothing. He wore a golden ceremonial coat that marked him as alpha of the Nightshade Pack, Magnus' greatest enemy, the rival who'd contested every territorial claim, every alliance, every breath of power Silvermoon had taken for 20 years. What was he doing here? "I don't have Magnus' protection," Mabel said quietly. "I never did." "No." Kieran's gaze swept across the room, measuring, calculating. "But you have something more valuable. Your father's territorial claims. The borderlands between our packs." He turned back to her. "Claims that died with him, buried under accusations of treason. Unless someone with legitimacy revives them." Understanding crashed over her. "You need me. I need those territories. You need protection." Kieran extended his hand. "Pretend like you're with me. Leave with me now, publicly, and Victor can't touch you without starting a war." The hall had gone silent. Every wolf was watching now, sensing the predator in their midst. "You're asking me to betray my pack," Mabel breathed. "I'm asking you to survive." Kieran's voice was soft, dangerous. "Look around, Mabel Thornfield. These wolves aren't your pack. They never were." He was right. She'd spent 5 years being invisible, being nothing, waiting for a justice that would never come. Victor was already moving toward them, his expression darkening. Mabel took Kieran's hand. The reaction was instantaneous. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone shouted in outrage. Victor froze mid-step, fury blazing in his eyes as Kieran pulled Mabel forward, claiming her before the entire pack. "What are you doing?" Victor snarled. "Offering sanctuary to someone your father wronged." Kieran's smile was all teeth. "Unless you'd like to contest it here, at his funeral?" Victor's hand moved toward his belt, toward the challenge blade every alpha carried. But attacking Kieran now, in this sacred space, would dishonor Magnus' memory. The political trap was perfect. "You have 1 hour to gather your belongings," Kieran told Mabel, his hand steady on hers. "Then we leave. Together. 1 hour to pack a life. 1 hour before she became what they'd always called her, traitor." Mabel looked at Victor's rage, at the pack's horrified faces, at the life that had never wanted her. "I'll be ready," she said. Mabel's cottage at the edge of Silvermoon territory had always been small, but it had never felt this suffocating. She moved through the single room with methodical precision, aware that somewhere outside, pack members were watching, waiting to see if she'd actually go through with this betrayal. Her hands trembled as she pulled her father's journals from their hiding place beneath the loose floorboard. 3 leather-bound volumes, pages yellowed with age and smoke damage, filled with his careful handwriting. Territory maps, border agreements, and notes, so many notes about things that hadn't made sense when she was 20, but might make sense now. She wrapped them carefully in oilcloth and buried them at the bottom of her worn travel bag. The rest came quickly. Her mother's silver hairbrush, the carved wolf pendant her father had given her on her 16th birthday, 2 changes of clothes, a hunting knife. Everything she owned fit into one bag. 5 years of exile had taught her not to accumulate things that could be taken away. A sharp knock made her jump. "Time's up," a rough voice called. "Alpha Kieran's escort is here." Mabel shouldered her bag and opened the door to find Marcus Ironhide waiting, Kieran's second-in-command. He was built like a wall, scarred and grim, with 6 armed warriors flanking him. All of them wore the dark green and black of Nightshade Pack. "Miss Thornfield." Marcus's voice was formal, revealing nothing. "We leave immediately. Stay close and don't speak to anyone." They moved through Silvermoon territory like a military extraction. Wolves lined the streets, watching with hostile eyes. Someone spat as Mabel passed. Another shouted, "Traitor." A child threw a stone that Marcus caught midair without breaking stride. "Eyes forward," he ordered quietly. The borderlands between territories were dense forest, thick with undergrowth and the kind of shadows that could hide anything. Marcus positioned warriors in a protective circle around Mabel and Kieran, who'd been waiting at the boundary marker. "Any trouble?" Kieran asked. "Nothing we couldn't handle." Marcus glanced at Mabel. "Victor's furious, but he won't risk an incident." "Not yet." They walked in tense silence for 20 minutes before Mabel finally spoke. "What happens when we reach Nightshade?" Kieran didn't slow his pace. "You face the council." "Your council?" It wasn't a question. "My council," Kieran confirmed. "They'll want to know why I've brought a Silvermoon wolf into our territory. They'll want assurances you're not a spy." He glanced at her. "They'll want proof of your father's territorial claims." Mabel's hand instinctively went to her bag, where the journals lay hidden. "And if I can't provide it? Then you become a liability." Marcus's voice was cold. "Liabilities don't last long in Nightshade." "Marcus," Kieran's tone held warning. "She should know what she's walking into," Marcus countered. "Half the council wanted to leave her in Silvermoon. The other half thinks she's a plant. Nobody trusts her." He looked directly at Mabel. "Earning that trust won't be easy. Or safe." The forest seemed to press closer. Behind her lay a pack that had never wanted her. Ahead lay a pack that viewed her as a threat. And beside her walked an alpha whose motives she didn't understand and couldn't afford to trust. "How long do I have?" Mabel asked quietly. "To prove yourself?" Kieran's expression was unreadable. "The council convenes at sunset tomorrow. You have until then to convince them you're worth keeping alive." 24 hours. Mabel adjusted her bag and kept walking into enemy territory, carrying her father's secrets and her own desperate hope that this gamble wouldn't be the death of her. Nightshade's compound rose from the forest like something carved from the mountain itself, Dark stone walls topped with iron spikes, watchtowers manned by archers whose eyes tracked every movement. It made Silvermoon's elegant halls look like a child's playhouse. This was a fortress built for war, not ceremony. Marcus led them through gates that closed behind with the finality of a prison sentence. Wolves stopped their training to stare as Mabel passed. Their expressions ranged from suspicious to openly hostile. No one looked welcoming. "The council is already assembled," Kieran said quietly. "They've been waiting." The council chamber was circular, lit by torches that cast more shadow than light. 7 elders sat in a semicircle of high-backed chairs, each one radiating the kind of authority that came from decades of survival. At the center sat a woman who could only be Kieran's sister, same amber eyes, same sharp features, but where Kieran's face held calculated control, hers burned with barely contained fury. "Brother." Her voice dripped venom. "You've brought us a gift from Magnus' funeral." "How thoughtful." "Seraphina." Kieran moved to stand before the council, pulling Mabel forward. "This is Mabel Thornfield, daughter of—" "We know who she is." Seraphina stood, her ceremonial robes swirling like smoke. "Daughter of traitors. Cursed blood. A Silvermoon wolf who conveniently needs sanctuary the moment their alpha dies." She circled Mabel like a predator. "Tell me, little cursed one, what did Victor promise you to spy on us?" "Nothing," Mabel said steadily. "Victor wants me dead." "So you claim." An elderly male council member leaned forward, his scarred face skeptical. "Yet you arrive with our alpha, carrying secrets about territorial claims." "Very convenient." "Elder Tobias," Kieran began, but Seraphina cut him off. "You've compromised yourself, Kieran. Bringing her here without council approval, claiming she's essential to our territorial disputes." Seraphina's smile was cruel. "It's obvious she's manipulated you. The question is whether you're too blind to see it or too weak to care." The other council members murmured agreement. Mabel felt the room turning against her, against Kieran. "I propose we invoke the 3 trials," Seraphina announced. "Ancient tradition for those seeking sanctuary when their loyalty is questioned. Loyalty, survival, and truth. Pass all 3, and she's accepted as Pack. Fail even one. She's imprisoned as a spy," Tobias finished. "Or executed, depending on how badly she fails." Mabel's stomach dropped. She'd heard whispers of the trials, brutal tests designed to break wolves, not save them. Few outsiders passed. Most didn't survive. "This is excessive," Kieran said, his voice hard. "She's just arrived. She needs time to—" "To what? Plant more seeds of doubt? Gather more intelligence." Seraphina turned to the council. "All in favor of the trials?" 6 hands rose. Only Kieran abstained. "Then it's decided." Seraphina's smile was triumphant. "Mabel Thornfield, you will face the 3 trials beginning at dawn. Loyalty will be tested first. We'll see exactly what secrets you're hiding and where your true allegiance lies." She leaned close, her voice dropping to a whisper only Mabel could hear. "I'm going to enjoy watching you break." Mabel met her gaze without flinching. "I've been broken before. I got back up. We'll see." Seraphina straightened. "Take her to the guest quarters. She'll need her rest." The way she said guest quarters made it clear they were anything but. As Marcus escorted her out, Mabel caught Kieran's eye. He looked torn between anger and something that might have been concern. But he didn't intervene. couldn't, without undermining his own authority. Mabel was alone in enemy territory, facing trials designed to destroy her, with only her father's journals and her own desperate determination to keep her alive. Dawn was 6 hours away. They came for her before dawn. No gentle wake-up, no breakfast, just Marcus and 2 guards pulling her from the narrow bed in what was essentially a cell with a window. The interrogation chamber was underground, windowless, lit by a single harsh light that made shadows dance across stone walls. A chair sat bolted to the floor in the center. Iron restraints hung loose from the armrests. Mabel's throat went dry. Sit. Serafina was already there, along with Tobias and 3 other council members. Kieran stood in the corner, his face unreadable. The first trial begins now. They didn't use the restraints. Not yet. But Mabel saw them, felt their promise. Let's start simply, Tobias said, circling her chair. Silvermoon's northern border defenses. How many patrol points? 12. Mabel kept her voice steady. But 3 are undermanned since. Since when? Serafina leaned forward, hungry for information. Since Magnus diverted resources to the eastern trade routes 2 years ago. It was true and useless. The eastern routes were common knowledge to anyone who paid attention. He was more concerned with profit than defense. Eastern routes. Another council member, a woman with silver-streaked hair, made notes. What were they trading? This was the razor's edge. Give them enough to believe she was cooperating, but nothing that would get innocent wolves killed. Furs, mostly. Some medicinal herbs. Mabel paused, then added, "My father's journals document the official trade agreements. The legal ones, anyway." Serafina's eyes gleamed. Implying there were illegal ones? Magnus ran territorial deals that violated interpact treaties. My father was investigating them when he died. Mabel met Serafina's gaze. That's in the journals too. Along with territorial maps that prove Nightshade has legitimate claims to the borderlands. A murmur ran through the council. Even Kieran shifted slightly. Why should we believe you? Tobias demanded. You could have forged those journals. Check the dates. Cross-reference the territorial markers. My father was a surveyor before Magnus appointed him border guardian. Mabel kept her voice level. He documented everything, including evidence that Magnus was selling land rights that weren't his to sell. To whom? Serafina's voice was sharp. I don't know yet. The journals are encoded in some sections. A lie, but a useful one. I haven't finished translating them. The questioning went on for hours. They wanted everything: alliance structures, pack hierarchies, weaknesses in Silvermoon's leadership. Mabel gave them what they already knew or could easily discover, wrapped in enough detail to seem valuable. She mentioned Victor's gambling debts, Magnus' paranoia about succession, the eastern patrol routes that everyone knew were vulnerable. But she didn't mention the families who'd helped her after her parents died. Didn't name the wolves who'd left food on her doorstep when she was starving. Didn't reveal which guards looked the other way when she broke curfew to visit her parents' grave. The Omega quarters, another council member pressed. Surely they gossip. What did you hear? That I was cursed. Mabel's voice went flat. That my family's blood was tainted. That my presence brought misfortune. I wasn't welcome in the Omega quarters. I wasn't welcome anywhere. Silence fell. Even Serafina seemed momentarily disarmed by the raw honesty. You're asking me to betray pack secrets, Mabel continued quietly. But they were never my pack. They made sure of that. What I'm offering you is the truth about territorial theft and corruption at the highest levels. That should be worth more than gossip about which Omega is sleeping with which guard. Tobias and Serafina exchanged glances. Finally, Tobias nodded. The journals. We'll need to examine them. After the trials. Mabel's hands clenched in her lap. That was the agreement. Prove myself first, then I share everything. Clever, Serafina said coldly. Keeping your only leverage until you're safe. Keeping myself alive, Mabel corrected. There's a difference. Kieran finally spoke from his corner. She's answered your questions. The first trial is complete. Complete? Serafina whirled on him. We've barely. She's proven she'll cooperate without compromising innocence. That's loyalty. Kieran's voice held authority that even his sister couldn't dismiss. The trial is past. The blood moon rose like a wound in the sky, painting the forest crimson. Mabel stood at the edge of the sacred hunting grounds, watching elite nightshade warriors prepare for the hunt. Their hunt. For her. You have until dawn, Marcus announced, his face grim in the moonlight. Stay within the boundary markers, cross them, and you forfeit. Get caught and you fail. Simple rules for a simple trial. Simple, Mabel repeated, eyeing the 6 warriors who would be hunting her. Each one was twice her size, trained since childhood, and wearing predatory smiles that promised pain. When do I start running? Now. Serafina's voice cut through the night. And little cursed one? They won't be gentle when they catch you. Mabel ran. The forest swallowed her within seconds, thick undergrowth tearing at her clothes as she plunged into darkness. Behind her, she heard the warriors' howls, giving her a head start, letting fear build before they began their pursuit. It was psychological warfare, and it was working. But Mabel had something they didn't expect. Her father's maps, memorized during countless sleepless nights, detailed more than just territorial boundaries. He'd marked every stream, every cave, every hidden path used by border scouts. This forest had been his domain for 20 years. She veered left toward the sound of running water, found the creek exactly where her father had drawn it, and waded upstream for 100 yards before climbing out on rocks that wouldn't hold scent. The first warrior crashed through underbrush behind her, following her original trail. She watched him pass, so close she could hear his breathing. The night became a deadly game of chess. Every move calculated, every sound analyzed. Mabel used terrain like weapons, leading hunters toward dense thickets, doubling back on her own trail, climbing trees to bypass ground-level pursuit. She found the cave her father had marked Scout Station 7, and hid there while 2 warriors passed within feet of the entrance. Hours bled together. The blood moon tracked across the sky, marking time until dawn. Mabel's muscles screamed, her lungs burned, but she kept moving, kept thinking, kept surviving. Then she heard it, a hunter moving carelessly, frustrated and tired. He'd separated from the others, probably trying to cut her off. A mistake. Mabel picked up a rock, weighed it in her hand, and threw it hard to her left. The hunter's head snapped toward the sound. While he investigated, Mabel circled behind him, grabbed a fallen branch, and brought it down hard on the back of his knees. He went down with a yelp. Before he could rise, Mabel had his own knife pressed against his throat. "Caught you," she whispered. His eyes went wide with shock. Then, incredibly, he laughed. Moon's blood. She actually caught me. Marcus is never going to let you live this down, another voice said. Kieran stepped from the shadows, and Mabel realized he'd been watching. Hunting, but also observing. Release him, Mabel. You've made your point. She stepped back, letting the warrior reclaim his knife. He was grinning now, rubbing his knees. She's fast. And clever. He offered a respectful nod. First outsider to turn the tables in a blood moon trial in 15 years. Dawn broke over the horizon, painting the red moon pale. The other warriors emerged from the forest, empty-handed and looking frustrated. When they saw their companion nursing his pride and Mabel standing unharmed, several actually smiled. The second trial is complete, Kieran announced. Mabel Thornfield has survived the blood moon hunt. More than survived, she demonstrated tactical intelligence, knowledge of our territory, and the ability to think under pressure. He looked at her with something that might have been admiration. She's earned respect. Even Serafina, watching from the tree line with the rest of the council, couldn't hide her surprise. Mabel swayed on her feet, exhaustion finally catching up. Marcus caught her elbow, steadying her. Not bad, Thornfield, he murmured. Not bad at all. 2 trials down. 1 to go. And somehow, impossibly, she was still alive. They gave Mabel 2 days to rest before Tobias summoned her to the council chamber. She expected another interrogation, another test. Instead, he handed her a brass key. The archives, he said simply. Your father's territorial claims need verification. You have access to all historical documents related to the borderlands. He paused, studying her with those ancient, calculating eyes. The third trial isn't about what we ask you. It's about what you seek yourself. Mabel turned the key over in her palm, cold and heavy. I don't understand. Truth, Kieran said from behind her. She hadn't heard him enter. The third trial is always about truth. What you're willing to face, what you're brave enough to uncover, what you do when you find answers you didn't want. The archives were housed in the oldest part of the compound, a stone tower that smelled of dust and secrets. Shelves stretched from floor to ceiling, crammed with centuries of records. Treaties, territorial surveys, pack histories, all carefully preserved and catalogued. Mabel started with her father's name. Found his official territorial surveys, his appointment documents, his reports to Magnus about border disputes. Everything public, everything expected. But her father had been nothing if not thorough. He'd hidden truths in plain sight, using surveyor's notation that looked like technical jargon but was actually coded. It took her hours to remember the system. He'd taught it to her when she was 16, disguised as surveying lessons. Always leave a trail, he'd said. But make sure only the right people can follow it. The codes led her deeper into the archives, to older documents filed under different names. She found a box marked Territorial Disputes 2018 to 2020 and opened it with trembling hands. Letters. Dozens of them, correspondence between Alpha Magnus and Alpha Blackwood, Kieran's father. Her hands shook as she read. The surveyor is asking too many questions. His maps are too accurate. If he continues this investigation, he'll expose everything we've built. Magnus' handwriting unmistakable. Then eliminate the problem. Make it look like an accident. Dark magic, perhaps. The pack will believe it. They're always eager for a curse to explain away inconvenience. Kieran's father. Cold, calculated, murderous. It's done. The fire took them both. The daughter survived, but she's too young to understand what they found. I'll keep her close, make sure she never discovers the truth. A living reminder of what happens to those who dig too deep. Mabel's vision blurred. The archives spun around her. Her parents hadn't died in a curse. Hadn't been killed by dark magic or bad luck or divine punishment. They'd been murdered. Burned alive because they'd discovered that Magnus and Kieran's father were selling territorial rights illegally, pocketing profits while destabilizing pack borders. No, she whispered, but the evidence was there in black ink, in handwriting that couldn't be denied. Footsteps on the stairs. Mabel shoved the letters into her bag just as Kieran entered the archives. "Find what you needed?" he asked. Mabel stared at him, this alpha who'd offered her sanctuary, who'd protected her from Silvermoon, who'd looked at her with something that might have been genuine care. His father had ordered her parents killed. Had he known? Was this all part of some elaborate plan? Yes, she managed, her voice hollow. "I found exactly what I needed." Kieran's expression shifted, concern flickering across his face. "Mabel, what's wrong?" "Nothing." She stood, clutching her bag. "The third trial. I understand it now. Truth, you said. What you're willing to face." She met his eyes. "I need to speak to the council. Immediately." "About what?" "About what really happened to my parents. About who killed them." Her voice was steady despite the rage and grief threatening to tear her apart. "About the lies that destroyed my life." Kieran went very still. "Mabel, your father and Magnus were partners. In murder." She pulled out one of the letters, thrust it at him. "Did you know? Were you part of it?" He read the letter, and she watched the color drain from his face. "Moon's blood. I was 18 when this happened." "I didn't." "The third trial is truth," Mabel interrupted. "So here's mine. I'm going to expose everything. And if that destroys you too, so be it." The council chamber erupted into chaos the moment Mabel laid the letters on the table. "This is what they died for," Mabel said, her voice cutting through the noise. "My parents discovered that Magnus and Alpha Blackwood were running illegal territorial deals, selling land rights to human developers, pocketing the profits, destabilizing pack borders. When my father threatened to expose them, they murdered him. Burned him and my mother alive and blamed it on a curse." Tobias picked up one of the letters, his scarred hands shaking. This is your father's handwriting, Kieran." "I never saw these." Kieran's face was ashen. "I was 18 when my father died. He kept me away from pack politics, said I wasn't ready." His voice cracked. "Moon's blood, he was hiding this from me." "How convenient," Serafina said coldly. She stood, addressing the council. "My brother claims ignorance while harboring the daughter of the man who threatened our pack's stability. He's clearly compromised, emotionally attached to this woman who's brought nothing but chaos since she arrived." "Chaos?" Mabel whirled on her. "The truth isn't chaos. It's justice. It's a threat to pack leadership." Serafina's eyes gleamed. "I move for Kieran to step down. He's demonstrated poor judgment, brought an outsider into our ranks who's now accusing our previous alpha of murder. Because he committed murder." Mabel slammed her hand on the table. The doors burst open. Marcus rushed in, blood on his armor. "Victor Silvermoon is at our borders with 50 warriors. He's invoking the law of blood debt, demanding Mabel's extradition for crimes against Silvermoon Pack. He looked at Mabel grimly. He says you stole classified documents, that you're a traitor and a spy. He wants you surrendered within the hour, or he attacks. Mabel's stomach dropped. Victor had learned about her discovery. Of course he'd been working to hide his father's crimes for 5 years. This is your doing, Serafina hissed at Kieran. Your attachment to her has brought us to the brink of war. No. Kieran's voice was steel. Victor's guilt has brought us here. He's trying to silence Mabel before she can expose what Magnus did. He turned to the council. We don't surrender her. We stand and fight. For what? Serafina demanded. For a girl who's torn our pack apart? Who's made you weak? Kieran met Mabel's eyes. For the truth. Even when it damns my own blood. Victor Silvermoon stood at Nightshade's gates like a golden king demanding tribute. His 50 warriors formed precise ranks behind him, all wearing ceremonial armor that caught the afternoon sun. He held a scroll sealed with Magnus' crest, official grievance documents that carried the weight of Interpack law. Alpha Kieran Blackwood, Victor's voice rang across the compound. I invoke the law of blood debt, established in the Treaty of 5 Packs, witnessed by Elder Council authority. You harbor Mabel Thornfield, daughter of convicted traitors, who has stolen classified documents and fled justice. Surrender her immediately or face formal challenge for violation of Interpack law. Mabel watched from the ramparts, Kieran beside her. The trap was perfect. Victor had twisted everything. Her parents' murder investigation became treason. The evidence she'd found became stolen documents. Her escape became fleeing justice. If I refuse? Kieran called down. Then you declare yourself complicit in her crimes. Victor's smile was venomous. You'll face challenge not just from me, but from any alpha who believes in upholding pack law. Your authority will be questioned. Your judgment compromised. He paused, letting the words sink in. All for a cursed girl you barely know. Serafina appeared at Kieran's other side. He's right. Fight for her and the other packs will see you as weak, controlled by emotion rather than logic. Surrender her and we maintain our standing. Her voice softened artificially. Brother, I know you feel responsible for her, but... This isn't about responsibility, Kieran interrupted. It's about what's right. Right? Victor laughed. You want to talk about right? Her father was investigating illegal activities that threatened pack stability. Magnus made a difficult decision for the good of Silvermoon. And yes, perhaps the fire was convenient, but that's leadership. Making hard choices. He was admitting it. Publicly justifying murder as political necessity. You have 1 hour, Victor continued. Surrender the girl or face the consequences. Your choice, Alpha Blackwood. Your pack's future or one cursed wolf's life. Should be an easy decision. Mabel felt Kieran tense beside her. Felt the weight of 50 warriors waiting below, of his own council watching, of Serafina's calculating gaze. She was one person. Nightshade was hundreds. The math was simple. Don't, she whispered. Don't sacrifice your pack for me. Kieran looked at her, and something fierce burned in his amber eyes. Watch me. Wait. Mabel's voice cut through the tension. She descended from the ramparts, her father's journals clutched against her chest. Victor wants to talk about law and justice? Then let's do this properly. 3 elder alphas had arrived, neutral arbiters required by the law of blood debt. They stood between the two packs, ancient and impartial. Mabel walked straight to them. "I invoke the right of evidence," she said clearly. "Before any challenge proceeds, I present documentation proving the accusations against my family are false." Victor's face darkened. This is a stalling tactic. He read the letter, and she watched the color drain from his face. Moon's blood. I was 18 when this happened. I didn't. The third trial is truth, Mabel interrupted. So here's mine. I'm going to expose everything. And if that destroys you too, so be it. The council chamber erupted into chaos the moment Mabel laid the letters on the table. "This is what they died for," Mabel said, her voice cutting through the noise. "My parents discovered that Magnus and Alpha Blackwood were running illegal territorial deals, selling land rights to human developers, pocketing the profits, destabilizing pack borders. When my father threatened to expose them, they murdered him, burned him and my mother alive, and blamed it on a curse." Tobias picked up one of the letters, his scarred hands shaking. This is your father's handwriting, Kieran." "I never saw these." Kieran's face was ashen. "I was 18 when my father died. He kept me away from pack politics, said I wasn't ready." His voice cracked. "Moon's blood, he was hiding this from me." "How convenient," Serafina said coldly. She stood, addressing the council. "My brother claims ignorance while harboring the daughter of the man who threatened our pack's stability. He's clearly compromised, emotionally attached to this woman who's brought nothing but chaos since she arrived." "Chaos?" Mabel whirled on her. "The truth isn't chaos. It's justice. It's a threat to pack leadership." Serafina's eyes gleamed. "I move for Kieran to step down. He's demonstrated poor judgment, brought an outsider into our ranks who's now accusing our previous alpha of murder. Because he committed murder." Mabel slammed her hand on the table. The doors burst open. Marcus rushed in, blood on his armor. "Victor Silvermoon is at our borders with 50 warriors. He's invoking the law of blood debt, demanding Mabel's extradition for crimes against Silvermoon Pack." He looked at Mabel grimly. "He says you stole classified documents, that you're a traitor and a spy. He wants you surrendered within the hour, or he attacks." Mabel's stomach dropped. Victor had learned about her discovery. Of course he had. He'd been working to hide his father's crimes for 5 years. "This is your doing," Serafina hissed at Kieran. "Your attachment to her has brought us to the brink of war." "No." Kieran's voice was steel. "Victor's guilt has brought us here. He's trying to silence Mabel before she can expose what Magnus did." He turned to the council. "We don't surrender her. We stand and fight." "For what?" Serafina demanded. "For a girl who's torn our pack apart? Who's made you weak?" Kieran met Mabel's eyes. "For the truth. Even when it damns my own blood." Victor Silvermoon stood at Nightshade's gates like a golden king demanding tribute. His 50 warriors formed precise ranks behind him, all wearing ceremonial armor that caught the afternoon sun. He held a scroll sealed with Magnus' crest, official grievance documents that carried the weight of interpack law. "Alpha Kieran Blackwood," Victor's voice rang across the compound. "I invoke the law of blood debt, established in the Treaty of 5 Packs, witnessed by Elder Council authority. You harbor Mabel Thornfield, daughter of convicted traitors, who has stolen classified documents and fled justice. Surrender her immediately or face formal challenge for violation of Interpac law. Mabel watched from the ramparts, Kieran beside her. The trap was perfect. Victor had twisted everything. Her parents' murder investigation became treason. The evidence she'd found became stolen documents. Her escape became fleeing justice. If I refuse? Kieran called down. Then you declare yourself complicit in her crimes. Victor's smile was venomous. You'll face challenge not just from me, but from any alpha who believes in upholding pack law. Your authority will be questioned. Your judgment compromised. He paused, letting the words sink in. All for a cursed girl you barely know. Serafina appeared at Kieran's other side. He's right. Fight for her and the other packs will see you as weak, controlled by emotion rather than logic. Surrender her and we maintain our standing. Her voice softened artificially. Brother, I know you feel responsible for her, but this isn't about responsibility, Kieran interrupted. It's about what's right. Right? Victor laughed. You want to talk about right? Her father was investigating illegal activities that threatened pack stability. Magnus made a difficult decision for the good of Silvermoon. And yes, perhaps the fire was convenient, but that's leadership. Making hard choices. He was admitting it. Publicly justifying murder as political necessity. You have 1 hour, Victor continued. Surrender the girl or face the consequences. Your choice, Alpha Blackwood. Your pack's future or one cursed wolf's life. Should be an easy decision. Mabel felt Kieran tense beside her. Felt the weight of 50 warriors waiting below, of his own council watching, of Serafina's calculating gaze. She was one person. Nightshade was hundreds. The math was simple. Don't, she whispered. Don't sacrifice your pack for me. Kieran looked at her, and something fierce burned in his amber eyes. Watch me. Wait. Mabel's voice cut through the tension. She descended from the ramparts, her father's journals clutched against her chest. Victor wants to talk about law and justice? Then let's do this properly. 3 elder alphas had arrived, neutral arbiters required by the law of blood debt. They stood between the 2 packs, ancient and impartial. Mabel walked straight to them. I invoke the right of evidence, she said clearly. Before any challenge proceeds, I present documentation proving the accusations against my family are false. Victor's face darkened. This is a stalling tactic. Then you should have nothing to fear from the truth. Mabel opened the first journal. My father documented everything. Illegal land sales to human developers. Payoff split between Magnus and Alpha Blackwood. Treaty violations that destabilized 3 territories. She handed pages to the arbiters. Here's Magnus' signature on contracts selling protected forest lands. Here's the accounting showing where the money went. The eldest arbiter's eyes widened as he read. This is damning evidence of systematic corruption. It gets worse. Mabel's hands shook, but her voice stayed steady. My father was going to expose it all. So Magnus ordered him killed. And Victor, she pulled out a final document, carried out the execution. His report to his father, detailing how he set the fire. How he made sure both my parents burned. How he convinced the packet was a curse. Victor lunged forward, but Marcus's warriors blocked him. The arbiters read the evidence in growing horror. The conspiracy wasn't my father's, Mabel said. It was theirs. And I have 5 years of documentation proving it. The chaos erupted in seconds. Victor snarled and shifted, his warriors moving to defend him, but the arbiters raised their hands and the authority in that gesture froze everyone. Then something unexpected happened. 3 of Victor's own warriors stepped back, horror written across their faces as they looked at their alpha. One of them, a grizzled veteran Mabel recognized from her childhood, dropped his weapon entirely. "You murdered children's parents," he said, his voice breaking. "You let us believe it was a curse. We shunned that girl for 5 years because of your lies." The defection spread like wildfire. More Silvermoon wolves backed away from Victor, some joining Nightshade's line, others simply standing down. Victor fought viciously, desperately, but Marcus and Kieran's combined forces overwhelmed him. Within minutes he was subdued, bleeding and snarling as the arbiters pronounced judgment. "Victor Silvermoon, you are guilty of murder, conspiracy, and corruption of pack law. Mabel Thornfield is exonerated of all charges and recognized as rightful heir to her father's territorial holdings." Mabel's legs nearly gave out. 5 years. 5 years of being cursed, hated, invisible. And now, "There's something else," Kieran said quietly, drawing her aside as Victor was dragged away. "Your father's territories border mine. Combined, they'd create the strongest unified territory in the region." He met her eyes. "I'm not asking you to surrender your claim. I'm asking you to rule alongside me. As equals. Co-alphas of a new pack." Mabel stared at him. "You barely know me. I know you survived 5 years of exile. Passed 3 impossible trials. Stood against an alpha and 50 warriors armed only with truth." His hand found hers. "I know you're exactly the kind of leader this territory needs. Your sister won't accept this. My sister tried to orchestrate a coup using your arrival as cover." Kieran's voice hardened. "The council's already voted. She's exiled, effective immediately." Seraphina's scream of rage echoed across the compound as guards escorted her beyond the borders. Mabel watched her go without satisfaction, only weary relief that one more threat was neutralized. "A new pack," Mabel said slowly. "From the ashes of both old ones." "Silver Knight," Kieran suggested. "Honoring both bloodlines. Built on transparency and justice instead of lies and corruption." He squeezed her hand. "What do you say, partner?" Mabel looked at the wolves gathering, Silvermoon and Nightshade mixing, talking, processing the revelations. Enemies becoming allies because the truth had finally been told. "I say yes." Snow fell soft and steady over Silver Knight territory, blanketing the memorial stone in pristine white. Mabel traced her fingers over the carved names, her mother's, her father's, finally given the honor they deserved. Kieran stood beside her, solid and steady, as wolves from both former packs approached to pay respects. "They were good people," an elderly Omega said, tears in her eyes. "I knew it was wrong, what happened. I'm sorry I didn't speak up." "You're here now," Mabel said gently. "That matters." Marcus approached with a list, looking uncomfortable but determined. 7 wolves were falsely accused under Magnus' rule. They're asking permission to return and clear their names. "I recommend we grant it," Mabel and Kieran said simultaneously. They exchanged small smiles. 6 months since Victor's arrest. 6 months of rebuilding, reorganizing, creating something new from the broken pieces of 2 corrupt packs. It hadn't been easy. There were still wolves who resented the changes, who preferred the old certainties even if they were built on lies. But slowly, steadily, Silver Night was becoming real. "There's one more thing," Kieran said, drawing everyone's attention. He took Mabel's hand, and she felt her heart skip. "Mabel and I are formally announcing our mating bond." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Then applause, genuine and warm. "No political pretense this time," Mabel added, looking at Kieran with something fierce and tender. "No convenience. Just partnership. Just us." She thought about standing alone at Magnus' funeral, isolated and hated. About accepting help from an enemy because she had no other choice. About every terrifying moment since: the interrogations, the hunt, the revelations, the battle. She'd walked into Nightshade territory expecting death and found life instead. Found truth, justice, and somehow, against all odds, love. "The curse is broken," someone called out, and others echoed it. But Mabel knew better. There had never been a curse, only convenient lies to hide murder. The breaking had been of something far more insidious: silence, complicity, systemic corruption. As winter sun broke through clouds, painting snow gold, Mabel stood beside her mate and Coalpha, surrounded by a pack that had chosen truth over comfort. She was no longer the cursed outcast, no longer invisible or powerless. She was Mabel Thornfield, Alpha of Silver Night, daughter of murdered heroes, survivor of impossible trials. She was exactly where she was meant to be.